All right, here we go.
Deep trick.
So we're breaking all the rules again, playing copyrighted music.
They can come find us.
Chris, how's it going? It's been a few weeks since we've done one of these. How are things in your world?
Things are going great. Of course, we're headed into the heat of the summer. It's going to be a swelter, especially in the South with all the humidity. But
yeah, for
things
sure.
have been rocking along, getting prepared to go to the Cabo Spine Summit next week, and excited to be hosting with MY01 today and Charlie Allan.
Well, that's a great actually segue. So we're going to do a live show. Maybe we'll do a live show from Cabo Spine. Maybe we'll figure out how to do a live show on LinkedIn from Cabo Spine next Friday.
Yes. You just
That would
want
be fun to do.
you need to let me know what background you want.
I'll be stuck in Memphis where it's about 100,000% humidity and you'll be chilling in Cabo. Working. You'll be working. I'm sure you'll be working the whole time.
I will be working.
Well, anyway, we're super excited. I say this every time, but it's just true to have today's guest, Charlie Allan from MY01. Is it MY01 or MY01? We'll find out when he comes on. But he's working on something really important. I'm an old trauma guy. I spent 8 years in trauma with my past company, and I just love working with the trauma surgeons. They're a little crazy, but that's what makes it fun, you know?
That's absolutely.
And the trauma business is very stable because, number one, nobody's come up with a cure for stupid. People are going to do stupid things. And, you know, as long as people, this is what a trauma surgeon said to me one time. He says, as long as people say, hold my beer and watch this, trauma's going to be busy.
It's true.
And so now we're entering into trauma season with motorcycle accidents and people traveling on the road and doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
And also just
walking for old guys like you and me. You know, with bad injuries, particularly lower extremity injuries, compartment pressure syndrome is a thing. It could be a total disaster for patients. I've seen it happen. And the treatment of it is awful. And the pain that is associated with it is terrible. And our friend, Charlie Allan, who we're going to bring on here right now, is working on something. And tell us all about it. Charlie, welcome to the MedTech Jam Session.
Glad to be here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Charlie, tell us a little bit about your company. Did I say it correctly? Is it MY01 or MY01? Do you have a preference?
It's neither.
There we go. Tells you how well prepared I am.
That's what happens when you've got engineers naming the company, but it's MY01 is the name.
MY01.
Yeah,
MY01.
And
So it's really an O.
Yeah.
It's not a zero.
Yeah, and so the idea behind the name was that myo being for muscle, it's Greek for muscle, and 01 being digital. So the idea is that we're digitizing the muscle.
Oh,
I like that actually. That's really.
I don't think I've ever
Not bad for an
heard
engineer.
that. For the years that we have known each other. Pretty cool.
So that's why I got to get the name out there, and the brand is, as it gets more and more recognized, people are starting to name it properly. But it's one of those things that it is what it is. Yeah.
Well, MY01's a great name, and particularly for the problem that you're solving. So talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about what inspired you. What's the story behind the story? Where did you guys come up with this concept to solve the problem of compartment pressure?
Yeah, so it's a well-known problem that's been around for a very long time, but I'm an engineer. I just came out of engineering school. I was working on sensor technology. I thought there would be really exciting stuff to do in that space. Just a little background on myself. My grandfather, Charlie Allan, I'm named after him. Dr. Allan was a surgeon at the Montreal General. And my great-grandfather on my mom's side actually invented the snowmobile. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's a kind of little fun fact.
That is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I've been surrounded by entrepreneurs and doctors my whole life. And when I was doing this technology, when I looked at basically when I was working on sensors, I met this surgeon, Dr. Ed Harvey, who's an orthopedic trauma surgeon that's been pretty well known in the space. And he explained to me this problem. And when he was explaining to me, I could see the tension that he had in his face and the energy that he had towards this. And I realized that it had to be a big problem. The more I looked into it and saw the horrific efforts of what happens when you miss the cascade of compartment syndrome, I knew we had to do something about it. And when you looked at the therapy and how invasive it was, to just be doing that off of the way it was going today, I thought if we could measure the actual disease you can cut through a lot of the noise. And that's what led us down there. There's a lot of analogies that you can look at. Pulse oximetry, before pulse oximetry, they had to wait for patient to turn blue, to figure out if they were running out of oxygen.
Yeah.
And that, that changed the world. And another fun one is glucose. Before glucose monitoring, back in the day, physicians actually tasted the urine.
Oof.
Yeah, to figure out and if it was sweet, then they were diabetic. So
they couldn't get somebody else to taste it.
Yeah,
that's the resident probably did that.
Yeah. So that we kicked on this journey from an idea, and it's been really cool to see how it's evolved. And now we're in a bunch of hospitals across the U.S. Really aiming to become the standard, and lots of bumps along the road.
How many cases presently today without your technology present just in the U.S. alone?
That are at risk of developing? Yeah, it's a problem every day in every hospital. Any trauma center has to deal with the risk of this on a daily basis. And today, you joked about it. They throw residents at the problem, and it's R1s typically that have to bear the brunt of this late night, drunk person that tried to do something stupid comes in, and you're trying to figure out if they're just in shock because of, whatever they were trying to do didn't go to plan,
right?
Or if they're actually, developing this issue. And because of the cascading effect of what compartment syndrome is, it starts off slow and you might not even see it, and then it'll ramp up. And by the time the signs show up, there's very little time to make the right decision.
Wow.
So the curve is sort of gradual and then it's not. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, it's a gradual cascade that just gets worse and then it spikes. And so to be able to pick up that development over time is really the key of what we're able to do. And what we've been able to show is we can do it pre-symptomatically. So you can actually start to see the disease developing before the patient even shows any signs. And that's really the key here, is to give teams more time to get in front.
Cool.
That's amazing. So okay, now talk a little bit about the actual technology and the workflow in the emergency room and how in the hospital and sort of how that works.
Yeah.
Talk about the different iterations of the technology and how you sort of landed on where you are now.
Yeah, so we looked at, the disease to start with, the science background. Dr. Harvey's got a basic science background. He did a lot of research in this space. And we looked at all different biomarkers of what could be used, and then also what could be easy to translate into a technology that could be easy to understand. If we talk about orthopedic surgeons, we want to make something that's more mechanical than physiological, because that's key to understanding. And there was a lot of work that had already been done in the space around looking at these biomarkers, and Dr. McQueen out of Edinburgh had been studying continuous pressure for a long time, and it's shown really good results. But the way they were deploying it was very manual and a lot of nursing effort to get a reading that could be usable. And so then when we looked at that, I said, is this the right biomarker? And we just don't have the right technology. And that's what we ended up looking at and figuring out a way to make it simple to deploy. We've got 50 innovations that came out, the patented innovations that came out of our technology that really dive into the microsensor that we were able to develop. So a small microsensor that's based on capacitive pressure sensing that we were able to miniaturize and place in the muscle and actually digitize the signal directly in the muscle. That's where the name comes from. And that's one of the key innovations that are able to create a reliable signal. But to your point, workflow is super important. So we actually designed the device to be easy to deploy. It's all self-contained. And once it's deployed on the patient, it's not just getting the data at the bedside. People are moving around all over the hospital. They're not necessarily near the patient. And so we developed a whole integrated system to get the data out. And it actually now shows up on your mobile phone. So the orthopod, whether they're in the hospital or at home, can pull out their phone and see how that patient's doing over time. And that's a key value driver for us. We're calling it the continuous perfusion sensing technology is the big piece of our device and our solution. And yeah, it's really starting to make a difference.
That's awesome. So even in the hospitals that you're in the U.S., and I'm a rep, okay, who am I going to call on? And I don't mean the orthopod. I mean the area of the hospital. Is it the ER 100%?
Because the patients usually come through the ER to begin with, and then they get called on. It's like a hot potato subject. So what ends up happening is the ER will say, okay, I'm not sure about this patient. I'm worried about it. So they'll immediately consult the ortho team. And because they want to let go of the viability, we'll call it compartment syndrome, even though it's not initially. And so, the ortho team's getting inundated by these calls that aren't necessarily that. It's like to then shed the liability to that department.
Hold on a second. Let's probe that a little bit. So what you're saying is that some of the emergency rooms will diagnose compartment pressure just to maybe increase the sense of urgency of the orthopedic service to move more quickly. Did I hear you say that correctly, or did I translate that right?
Yeah, that's part of it. And
interesting.
And then what ends up happening, and this becomes the workflow issue, is that some of these patients, they get there fast enough. And one of the biggest outcome, or the ones that really get misdiagnosed, it's not necessarily if the orthopod can get there in time, they usually make the right decision. But if they're busy, or the call doesn't happen to the right place, or some staff doesn't identify this patient could be at risk, or they went and assessed them at one point and the patient was fine, then by the time they roll around to doing the next check, that it could be a completely different outlook.
Yeah.
And that's what ends up happening in a lot of cases. And then you're behind the eight ball trying to do what you can to save an unfortunate outcome. This is one of the only things that's going to get an orthopod out of bed at night when they get well.
Yeah.
And so what inspires me is the difference we're making, and that we're solving a real problem. But there's no shortage of challenges, because it is a full hospital problem.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we've been working on is really tying in how our technology can fit into the trauma program, and how we can use that to drive performance improvement across the hospital. And so we're building a whole program to do that. We're seeing a lot of interest from the trauma program managers, and that's really been a big unlock for us in the last year.
Are you a MedTech company prepping for a big product launch and are struggling to get the attention of your sales team so that they can hit the ground running? Or are you a medical device sales professional who is frustrated because you have to go to one platform for sales training, another platform to access selling tools, and then go to your email to check for important company updates? Well, here at Convey Med, we've built a better way. Welcome to Convey Connect. Your bespoke company-branded mobile app will become the single source of truth for your sales reps, resulting in a better trained, connected, and engaged team who will crush quotas. Organize your training content to accelerate Salesforce readiness. Customize your sales library so your reps can easily find and use the selling tools that move prospects to customers. Build culture and camaraderie with your own internal social media feed right inside the app. Built on a secure platform and customized for your needs, we can get your mobile app deployed to the app stores in a matter of weeks. Please visit conveymed.io to learn more and schedule a demo.
That's great. And so, we've got the rep scenario. Let's think about the VAC committee. Of course, we're in 2025. We didn't even know what a VAC was 10 years ago. And I look at that and I think to myself, this should be an easy acceptance. What are you experiencing?
Yeah, we have 100% VAC approval rating for the last year. We've onboarded 10 new trauma centers in the last 6 months.
That's impressive.
It's accelerating rapidly, but you have to check all the boxes. So we've got the economic story that we now have a published paper on. We have the clinical data, 150 patients that we've published as well. And then you've got the surgeon support. And one of the challenges that we had initially was to get it in, we were trying to get one champion and push that forward. It does work, but we ended up being very siloed. Now our approach is really, a whole holistic approach. So we'll go in, and until we have buy-in from multiple departments and the right grouping, we'll wait until we get that before we go to VAC, which is a little bit of work up front, but it pays off in the long run.
That's great.
Talk a little bit about onboarding then. So you've successfully completed your VAC. The trauma program is all in. what's the next step to onboard the team?
Oh, yeah.
Who are the different stakeholders that you're training? How does that work? Because it seems like it's a more complex workflow than like a surgical device, which is, has its own challenges, but this is different. To talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, there's tons of details within that to unpack. Initially, we just, we'd bring it in. We said, okay, if you train the attending surgeon, it'll work and then it'll all happen. And then we sat it back and wondered why it wasn't being utilized at the right time. Now what we've partnered up with a group called Optimal Health Advisors. That is a group of trauma nurses that has a background in trauma development, trauma programs. And they'll come in along with our team and really build a whole plan that starts with the trauma program manager and works their way down, hit all the different departments. And so we have this connected system with a base station that will place one in the ER, one in the OR, and typically one in the ICU. And that's our home base. We train people on that. We go as far as actually having the prescribed list of at-risk patients built into the EMR. And so when a case comes in that meets the requirements, an order set gets placed, and that activates the technology to be used at the right place at the right time. Yeah.
Very cool.
So the EMR, there's like a trigger. It's like, oh, this patient meets this criteria. The protocol at our hospital or our program is to use MY01. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're moving towards with all our customers. It does take time and there's work to be done on each piece, but the value of that is when you can place it early and before a patient even has signs, you can really start to see that cascade happen in real time. And that gives your team a lot more time to react before you have consequences.
Tell me real quick, the name of that organization that you just mentioned, the nurses, what's it called again?
Optimal Healthcare Advisors.
Did they find you or did you find them?
It was a little bit of both.
Okay.
So,
serendipitous, maybe.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. And it is a perfect match. We've been working really well together, and it's starting to become really exciting for us.
That's awesome.
Was there a patient education part of this? I mean, if I am in the emergency room or I have a loved one in the emergency room and the ER doctor comes by and says, yeah, it looks fine now, but be aware of these three things. If you start feeling this, hit the button immediately, right? So then you can engage more quickly. Is there a patient educational?
Yeah. So usually what will happen is if a patient's moving in that direction, they will have explain to them what the problem is, why they're placing the device. And usually that is, and the sensor technology it's actually valuable for the patient to be involved in the care of the team. So think about what it is before. It's just, you're sitting in the bed, someone will come by and ask you how your pain's doing on a scale of 1 to 10. And then they'll come back every 4 hours and ask you the same questions. If you're in the bed and you're worried about like something that's happening, you're starting to feel changes, it can be a very daunting experience. And so now you've got this technology that, that they'll explain what it is, why they're putting it in, and you're involving them in the care pathway, which has been helpful to diffuse that situation.
And I would say too, that's very unique that you can involve them in the care pathway in orthopedics, because normally they're out on a tape, sleep on the table in the middle of a procedure, but this is to prevent that. I really like it.
No, and that's one of the big value adds. And from a sales agent perspective, this is one of the things that we've been working through is trying to, how can we create more value for them? So one of the things that we're able to do with our technology is involve more of the care team. First off, you can have conversations that are addressing a real problem across the hospital. So it gives you, where the salesperson usually has a call point to, let's say, the orthopedic, surgeon, and they don't really have an ability to speak to other parts of the hospital that might be helpful for them. So that's one big area. The other one is when our system's deployed properly, it's usually deployed early in the care of the patient, maybe before the orthopod even knows that the patient's in the hospital at risk. So that gives the sales team, that sales agent that might be, going to be putting the nail in later on, heads up that this case is coming through to be value add earlier in the care pathway.
What can you share with us about the business model? I'm curious. This is different. Again, it's not a surgical device. It's not. Maybe it's more of a software as a service or subscription. How has that evolved over time, and how are you doing it now?
Yeah, so today we sell it's a fee per patient, and our economic story is such that it costs less money to use our device and treat them the way you normally do. If you can imagine, deciding to do a fasciotomy is not a benign procedure. It's a very invasive procedure. For those who haven't seen it and are open to it, you can Google what that is.
The key is open to it.
Exactly.
And it's not just, permanent and very invasive. It carries a lot of consequences and a lot of costs. And so on average, it's about $30,000 of additional costs to treat.
Probably a high infection rate, I would gather.
Yeah, very high infection rate, longer length of stay, all of the above. And so by reducing that rate, you significantly save on costs. And so our publication shows about a $2,800 savings net of the cost of our device.
That's great.
Per patient.
So if you look at the market itself and you think about the competitiveness, it seems to me like there's nothing out there like this. What is there anything that could be, you're a first mover, right? I really believe that. What do you see coming behind you? Anything?
There are people that are looking at other point solutions. So ultrasound's an interesting area. Some groups are trying to use ultrasound as a way to measure the strength of the fascia and look at that. Mm-hmm. There's people trying to do pH as a way to monitor. And there have been other pressure sensing technologies, but everything's been a single point in time type approach. And as I said earlier, compartment syndrome is a cascade. It starts slow and then it ramps up over time. And if you wait until the end of the ramp when the patients are showing signs, you're really not getting the full value of the technology, and you can't get in front of these problems early. And also, you can't identify which patients won't be developing it, which carries its own inefficiencies. So we're really the only technology that's able to stay with the patient and monitor them as they move through the care pathway. And I think we're well positioned to do that moving forward.
That's great.
So you shared with us before we started, you're scaling the technology into other areas. Kind of where do you go next? With this technology.
Exactly. So I'll walk you through the cascade of compartment syndrome, and then it'll explain kind of why we're getting pulled into different areas. So compartment syndrome starts off with some sort of injury. It could be a fracture, it could be a burn, it could be a snake bite. All different things can cause swelling to build up within the muscle, which increases the pressure that's locally inside the muscle. When that happens, it decreases the perfusion of the muscle so that the blood can't get into the muscle. When that happens, you have a low blood flow, which leads to ischemia. And ischemia causes more damage that creates the pressure, and the cascade starts to happen. And that's why you see an acceleration of the disease over time, why it can start slow and then build up. I say all that because part of our strategy has been to address each one of those different areas to continue to build a more holistic solution. So we started with pressure. We got our first clearance, 510K in 2021. Perfusion, just in April, we got that approved through a breakthrough indication. So that's giving us reimbursement in October, which is going to even drive up the economic story for our customers.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's exciting. But in doing all this work, we were able to identify a biomarker within our technology that could be used for blood flow monitoring. And that's something that we're releasing in October of this year. So we're really excited about that. And why that's really important is on the cardio side, the ischemia side, it starts with lack of blood flow. And that creates ischemia, which creates pressure, which causes the same cascading effect. So by having that biomarker, we have an early indicator for the ischemic population, which is where cardiogenic shock type patients, they have that problem that then leads into compartment syndrome over time and vascular injuries. So what we've seen as well is we actually have a patient like this, Christy. She was surfing off the coast of California and hit a wave and hyperextended her leg.
Okay.
She broke her tibia when she did that, broke her tibia plateau. When they went to the hospital, they dealt with that injury, but they missed the artery that had gotten occluded during that time period, and that caused ischemia over time. And so they fixed the fracture, but then they missed this underlying vascular injury. And by the time they were able to catch it, the only thing they could do was amputate her leg.
Wow.
Life-changing event. She's actually had a medical device background and pharmaceutical background and was looking for something to do that, would help address this problem. She found us, and she's now representing us in California.
Wow.
And is our top performing.
I'm sure she's got the
That's
passion
awesome.
of, this is a real problem. Yeah.
And that it speaks to kind of the nature of this issue, that it's very complex. There's multiple different areas that can cause this disease, this cascade. But when you can measure the problem, you can cut through a lot of the noise. And that's what we're excited about. And the fact that we're working on with the trauma department and the trauma program manager allows us to go after these different verticals without having to build a very large sales organization.
And the power of those verticals is going to be, I think, very influential if your intent is eventually to be bought. Right. And, in that regard, I'm sitting here thinking Department of Defense, right? I mean, strategically, that is a game changer for the military.
Yeah, we're working very closely with them. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I imagine that they would probably also be, if you haven't already, maybe you probably have a good source of funding for your company. How did you fund the company? Talk a little bit about that for our listeners.
Yeah. So Dr. Harvey was able to get a grant from the Department of Defense initially to run some of the early preclinical work and then to get to clinic as well. And so most of our early data that's now published all came from that collaboration. We're now actively being used in multiple studies that are Department of Defense funded, and the technology is being deployed in a lot of these types of military settings. But that's one source of funding. Where it all started is I was able to get 40 individuals to write checks initially to get this technology out of the university and into the clinic. Mm-hmm. We got things going. So a lot of no's and then a few yeses, and that's how we made it happen. Today, we're supported by some groups out of Canada that help get us to the next stage. So we're past Series A. We're moving towards a Series B as we speak.
And your timing for Series B is when?
We think October is a really big milestone for us.
Okay.
So we're moving towards it as we go. Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
You got a great story, man.
You sure do. So, Charlie, where can people find you? Where can people learn more about MY01? Where can people get involved with what you're doing and learn more about?
Yeah, they can send me an email, charles.allan@my01.io. They can go on our website, www.my01.io. And those are probably the two easiest ways to get in touch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was awesome. Well, congratulations on what you built and stick-to-itiveness. Are there any big lessons you've learned that you'd want to share as a startup founder, as somebody who's taken, something out of the university and into a commercial situation? What lessons can you leave with other founders who are wrestling with that right now?
Yeah,
tons.
Give us one.
I mean, I think the moral is like the way I look at so one of the books I just recently read is "Obstacle is the Way," and it's true. You're basically always fighting the next hurdle. And I still remember when we got our first approvals. I popped champagne. I cried. I thought it was like a really important moment. A lot of sleepless nights to get us there, and I was like, okay, we made it. Yeah.
What do we do now? Is anybody going to buy it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the journey, isn't it?
Yeah. But it was really just the beginning of the journey, but then seeing where we've come since then and the learning, and really getting an appreciation to what it takes to get something from to just get it adopted in a hospital. Yeah. And the intricacies of what the care teams have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's quite, it's been a really fun journey, and we've done over 2,500 cases so far.
That's phenomenal.
It's growing faster and faster daily. And so, I'm excited about where things are going.
And you guys originally launched it when?
We got our first approvals in 2021.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, I see no reason why this shouldn't be standard of care. I mean, you've done everything. You've done all the right things. You've got a great clinical story. You've done all the research. You've got a great economic story. You're providing value for the hospital. You're changing patients' lives. I mean, you've ticked all those boxes. So, congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks again for tuning in to this edition of the MedTech Jam Session, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Charlie.
you. Thanks.